He had just gone for coffee, but he was completely enchanted by the waitress. David Thompson had established a simple routine after years of intense work. Every morning, he stopped by the small cafe on Broadway in New York City for his espresso before heading to the office. It was a moment of peace amid the chaos of running the tech company he had built from scratch. On that Tuesday in March, something different happened. When he ordered his usual coffee, the waitress who served him wasn't Mrs. Gladys, whom he had known for months. Instead, a young woman with brown hair tied in a ponytail and a smile that lit up the entire room approached his table. "Good morning. What would you like?" she asked in a sweet voice that momentarily left David speechless. An espresso, please," he managed to reply, watching as she carefully wrote down his order. "First time I've seen you here," the young woman said, while wiping the next table. "I'm Emily. I just started working here yesterday." David felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Ever since his ex-wife Jennifer had left, leaving only a letter explaining she needed to find herself, he had closed himself off to any romantic possibilities. "David," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "Actually, I've been coming here every day for about 6 months." "What a coincidence, then, that I started just now." Emily smiled, shaking his hand briefly before stepping away to get his coffee. When she returned with the steaming cup, David noticed a genuine simplicity in her movements. There was no rush, no pretense, no effort to impress. Emily seemed truly interested in doing her job well. "The coffee here really is great," he remarked, trying to prolong the conversation. "Mrs. Betty insists on using special beans. She says coffee is serious business," Emily replied with a smile. "Do you work nearby?" "A few blocks away, I run a small software development company." "How interesting. I've always admired people who build something of their own. It must be very rewarding." There was something in the way she spoke that felt sincere. David realized Emily wasn't just making polite small talk with a customer. She seemed genuinely interested. "And have you always worked in cafes?" he asked. "No, actually, I have a degree in education. I worked at a private school until last year, but..." She hesitated for a moment. "Things changed, and I needed to find something different." David noticed a shadow cross her face but didn't press further. There was more to her story, but he respected that she wasn't ready to share. "Well, if you ever decide to go back to teaching, I might know some people in the field," he offered. "Thank you, that's very kind of you," Emily replied, genuinely touched by his offer. Another customer waved from a nearby table, and she excused herself to attend to them. David finished his coffee more slowly than usual, watching as Emily treated each person with the same warmth and attention. There was something special about her, a light he couldn't quite define. The next day, David arrived at the cafe at the same time, hoping to see her again. Emily greeted him with an even warmer smile. "Mr. David, you came back," she said, as if his presence were a gift. "Of course, I can't break a 6-month tradition," he joked. "The usual espresso?" "Actually, how about you recommend something different today?" Emily seemed delighted by the request. She returned minutes later with a creamy latte and a small homemade cookie. "This is Mrs. Betty's special latte, and the cookie is my Grandma Grace's recipe," she explained. "If you don't like it, I promise I won't be offended." David took a bite, and his eyes widened. The flavor was unique, comforting, as if every sip brought back memories of happy childhood mornings. "It's amazing. Your grandmother must have been an excellent cook." "She was," Emily corrected with a melancholic smile. "She passed away last year, but she left all her recipes handwritten. My mother keeps them like a treasure. I'm so sorry for your loss." "Thank you. Grandma Grace always said her recipes were made with love and whoever ate them would feel that love." I think she was right. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. David felt his heart warm. There was something deeply touching about how Emily spoke of her grandmother, how she carried those memories with such tenderness. "She sounds like she was a very special person. She was the heart of our family. When she got sick, we all came together to care for her. It was a difficult time, but also full of love." Emily discreetly wiped her eyes. "Sorry, I still get emotional talking about her. Don't apologize. It's beautiful to see how much you loved her. Over the next few days, David began arriving a little earlier and leaving a little later from the cafe. His conversations with Emily became the highlight of his day. He learned she had left her job at the school because her mother, Mrs. Barbara, was undergoing delicate medical treatment and needed special care. The health insurance doesn't cover all the medications, Emily explained one particularly chilly morning. So I decided to find a job with more flexible hours so I could be with her when needed. David admired her dedication to family. It was rare to find someone so young with such maturity and sense of responsibility. Your mother must be very proud to have a daughter like you. She always taught me that family is what truly matters in life. Money comes and goes, success is fleeting, but the people we love are forever. Those words echoed in David's mind all day. How long had it been since he'd thought about life that way? Ever since Jennifer left, he'd focused solely on work, accumulating success and money, yet feeling an emptiness he couldn't fill. That Friday, David had an idea. After paying for his coffee, he left a generous tip and a small note. "Thank you for making my mornings more special. Have a wonderful weekend." Emily read the note and blushed slightly, but her smile was brighter than usual. "Thank you, Mr. David. You've made my workdays much more pleasant too." Over the weekend, David found himself constantly thinking about Emily. There was something about her that stirred feelings he thought he'd buried forever. It wasn't just her beauty, though she was undeniably lovely. It was her genuine kindness, the way she treated people, the quiet strength with which she faced challenges. On Monday, he arrived at the cafe with a racing heart, eager to see her again. But it was Mrs. Betty, a woman in her 60s and the owner of the place, who greeted him. "Good morning, Mr. David," the usual. "Good morning, Mrs. Betty. Is Emily not here today?" "Oh, Emily had to take her mother to the doctor. She'll probably be back tomorrow." David felt a pang of worry. He hoped it wasn't anything serious. The next day, Emily was back, but he noticed she seemed more downcast than usual. "Everything okay?" he asked, genuinely concerned. Yes. Just a little tired," she replied, but David sensed there was more. "If you want to talk, I'm here." Emily looked at him for a moment, as if weighing whether she could trust him. Then she took a deep breath. "My mother's appointment yesterday didn't go very well. The doctor said she'll need more intensive treatment, and it's much more expensive than we imagined. I'm so sorry. Is it serious?" "She has a heart condition that's been getting worse. Nothing life-threatening right now, but she needs constant care and medications that cost a lot." David felt the urge to offer help immediately, but realized it might be inappropriate. They barely knew each other, and a monetary offer could be misunderstood. "If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to ask," he said, pouring as much sincerity as he could into his words. "Thank you, Mr. David. Your kindness is already more than I could ask for." That night, David couldn't stop thinking about Emily's situation. Was there a way he could help without making her feel uncomfortable? The next morning, he arrived at the cafe with a proposal. "Emily, I have an idea that might interest you. My company needs someone to teach basic computer skills to our older employees. It'd just be a few hours a week, but the pay is good. Would you be interested?" Emily's eyes lit up. "Really? You'd do that for me?" "Of course. Actually, you'd be doing me a favor. I really need someone with experience in education, and you're exactly the right fit. I don't know what to say." "Say yes." "Yes," she replied with a smile that warmed David's heart. Over the next few days, David arranged everything so Emily could start working part-time at his company. She'd continue at the cafe in the mornings and teach in the afternoons a few times a week. When Emily visited the company to see the place and discuss the job, David saw her in a new light. Dressed more formally, she carried a professional confidence that impressed him. "This is where the magic happens," he said, showing her the office. Emily looked around with genuine interest. The modern workstations, the project boards, the creative energy in the air. "It's amazing what you've built here," she remarked. "It must be so rewarding to work on solutions that help others." "It is, but I'll admit, sometimes I get lost in the numbers and forget the human impact of our work. You reminded me of that. During her first week of teaching, David watched Emily in action. She had a natural gift for teaching, showing endless patience with the older employees who struggled with technology. Nancy, 55, who'd worked in accounting for 15 years, grew especially fond of Emily. "That girl is an angel," Nancy told David. "She explains things in a way even I can understand." David smiled. Seeing Emily thrive in that environment filled him with joy. One afternoon after work, David invited Emily for coffee elsewhere, just for a change of scenery. "Won't it be strange?" she asked. "I mean, leaving our cafe to go to another." "Think of it as market research," he joked. They went to a small coffee shop downtown. Away from work, their conversation flowed even more naturally. "Can I ask you something?" Emily said, playing with her cup's handle. "Of course." "Why did you help me? I mean, you barely knew me when you offered the job." David thought for a moment before answering. "Because I saw something special in you. A genuine kindness that's rare these days, and because," he hesitated, "because you reminded me there's beauty in life's simple things." Emily blushed slightly. "Thank you. That means a lot to me. Can I ask you something too?" "Go ahead. What really happened at your last job?" "You said things changed, but I sensed there was more." Emily sighed, as if she'd been expecting the question. "The school where I worked was private, very expensive. When they found out about my mother's situation, they started pressuring me not to miss work. They said I was failing my commitment when I needed to take her to the doctor." What horrible people. "They weren't bad, just unsympathetic. One day the principal called me in and said I needed to choose between family and career. So I chose." "And you don't regret it?" "Not for a second. Family is family, David. That's what my grandma always said." David felt even greater admiration for Emily. In a world where so many people prioritized money above all else, she had chosen love. "Your grandma raised an incredible person. She always said people come into our lives for a reason. Some to teach us, others to learn from us, and some," she looked directly into his eyes, "to stay forever." David's heart raced. There was something in her gaze that made him realize the feelings weren't his alone. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. In the weeks that followed, David and Emily began meeting regularly outside of work. Walks in Central Park, visits to small restaurants, conversations that stretched late into the night. David felt like he was rediscovering the joy of living. One evening, as they strolled down Fifth Avenue, Emily stopped in front of a store window. "How beautiful," she murmured, admiring a navy blue dress. "Why don't we try it on?" David suggested. "Oh no, it's too expensive. I was just admiring it." "Emily, you work hard. You deserve to treat yourself sometimes." "My priority is something else right now," she said, smiling. "But thank you for the encouragement." David was touched by her maturity, but also saddened to see how she set aside her own desires for her family. Secretly, he returned to the store the next day and bought the dress. On Friday, when Emily arrived at work, she found a wrapped box on her desk with a note. "Because you deserve beautiful things. D." She opened the box and was speechless when she saw the dress. She immediately looked for David. "David, I can't accept this." "Why not?" "It's too expensive and we're just friends." "Just friends?" he asked with a gentle smile. "Emily, can I be honest with you?" She nodded, still holding the box. "From the first day I saw you at the cafe, you changed something in me. I'd given up on the idea of finding someone special, of building a family. You made me believe again that it's possible." Emily was silent for a moment, processing his words. "David, I feel something special for you too, but I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "That it's too good to be true. That you might grow tired of my responsibilities, the complications in my life." David stepped closer, taking her hands gently. "Emily, your responsibilities aren't complications. They're part of who you are, and it's exactly that person I've fallen in love with." "Fallen in love?" she whispered. completely lost, hopelessly in love. Tears welled in Emily's eyes. "I've fallen for you too," she confessed, "but I'm so afraid of getting hurt again. Again. My last relationship ended because of my mother's situation. He said I was too much family for him." David felt anger toward this unknown man who had hurt Emily. Then he was an idiot who didn't know the treasure he had. "What if you change your mind too?" "Emily, look into my eyes," David asked. When she did, he continued, "I will never change my mind about you. Your dedication to your family only makes me love you more." She cried then, but they were tears of relief and happiness. David held her close, feeling as if all the pieces of his life had finally fallen into place. "Would you have dinner with me tonight?" he asked. "And wear the dress?" "I'd love to," she replied, smiling through her tears. That evening, David took Emily to a romantic restaurant in Greenwich Village. She looked stunning in the blue dress, but to him, her beauty came from within. Over dinner, they talked about their dreams for the future. David discovered that Emily had always wanted a big family, with children who could grow up surrounded by love, just as she had. He confessed that he'd always dreamed of being a father, but had shelved that dream after the divorce. "Maybe we can dream together now," he said, holding her hand across the table. "I'd really like that," Emily replied. When they returned to her apartment, Emily insisted David meet her mother. Mrs. Barbara was a 55-year-old woman with a quiet strength much like her daughter's. "So you're the David my daughter won't stop talking about," Mrs. Barbara said with a mischievous smile. "Mom," Emily protested, blushing. "That's me. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Barbara." "The pleasure is mine. Emily told me how you helped her with work. I can't thank you enough. She helped me. She brought light into my life when I needed it most." Mrs. Barbara noticed the way David looked at her daughter, and Emily smiled at him. There was genuine love there. She could feel it. "I'll make some coffee," Mrs. Barbara offered. "Mom, you should rest." "Nonsense, I feel great today." While Mrs. Barbara prepared the coffee, David and Emily sat in the small but cozy living room of the apartment. The walls were covered in family photos, and David could see the history of love and unity in that family. "Where's your father?" he asked, noticing there were no recent photos of a man. "He left when I was 15, Emily replied, no bitterness in her voice. "Said he wasn't ready to be a father or a husband. My mother raised me alone." "I'm sorry. Don't be. We turned out fine. My mother is the strongest woman I know." Mrs. Barbara returned with 3 cups of coffee, and the conversation flowed naturally. David was impressed by her wisdom and good humor, even as she faced health struggles. "David, can I ask you a personal question?" Mrs. Barbara said. "Of course." "What are your intentions with my daughter?" "Mom," Emily protested again. "It's all right," David said, looking straight at Mrs. Barbara. "My intentions are as serious as they come. I want to build a life with Emily, take care of her the way she deserves, and, if you'll allow me, take care of you too." Mrs. Barbara smiled, satisfied with his answer. "Then you have my blessing." In the weeks that followed, David became a constant presence in the Parker family's life. He accompanied Mrs. Barbara to doctor's appointments, brought groceries home, and most importantly, brought joy into their lives. One afternoon, as David worked in his office, he received an unexpected call. "David Thompson," said an unfamiliar woman's voice. "Yes, who's speaking?" "It's Jennifer, your ex-wife." David's blood ran cold. It had been 2 years since he'd last heard from Jennifer. "Jennifer? How did you get my number?" "I called your company." "David, I need to talk to you, in person." "About what?" "About us. About the mistakes I made. Can I come to your office?" David was silent for a moment. Part of him was curious about what Jennifer had to say, but another part worried it might complicate his new life with Emily. "Jennifer, it's been too long. I've moved on. I know I hurt you, David, but I've learned a lot about myself these past few years. I realized I made the biggest mistake of my life by leaving you. Jennifer, please, just one conversation. Give me this chance." Against his better judgment, David agreed to meet her at a neutral cafe the next day. That night he told Emily everything. He saw the worry in her eyes, but also trust. "Do you want to go?" she asked. "I think I need to finally close this chapter of my life." "Then go. I trust you." Emily's love and trust made him even more certain that Jennifer belonged in the past. The next day, David arrived at the cafe and found Jennifer waiting. She looked different, more mature, more elegant, but there was a sadness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Thank you for coming," she said as he sat down. "What do you want, Jennifer?" "I want to apologize and I want to try again," David sighed. "Jennifer, we already tried. Do you remember why you left? I know I said I needed to find myself, that our life was too monotonous. But David, I was scared. Scared of how much I loved you, of the responsibility of building a family. And now you're not. Now I know true love is rare, and I know I threw away the best thing I ever had." David looked at Jennifer and felt nothing. No anger, no love, no longing. Just sadness for the lost years. "Jennifer, I understand you've realized this, but it's too late. I've found someone. Someone you've known for just a few months? David, we have history, years together. That can't compete with something so new." "You're wrong. Time doesn't determine the depth of love. Emily showed me in just a few months what it means to truly love and be loved." "Emily?" Jennifer seemed genuinely surprised. "Who is she?" "The woman I'm going to marry." The words left David's mouth before he could think, but the moment he said them, he knew they were true. "Marry? David, you didn't even give me a real chance to explain." "Jennifer, I don't need explanations. You made your choice 2 years ago and I've made mine now. I hope you find happiness, but it won't be with me." David stood to leave, but Jennifer grabbed his arm. "David, please. You can't make such a big decision on a whim." "It's not a whim," he said, gently pulling free. "It's real love." He walked out of the cafe feeling free, free from the past, free from doubt, and completely certain about his future with Emily. When he arrived at the Broadway cafe, Emily was finishing her shift. She saw him walk in and immediately knew something important had happened. "How did it go?" she asked, stepping closer. "Better than I expected," David replied, smiling. "Emily, can I talk to you about something important?" "Of course." David knelt right there in the middle of the cafe, under the surprised gazes of the other customers and Mrs. Betty. "Emily Parker, you've completely changed my life. You've shown me what real love is, taught me that family is what truly matters. Will you marry me?" Emily covered her face with her hands, too emotional to speak. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Yes," she finally managed. 1,000 times, yes." The entire cafe erupted in applause. Mrs. Betty cried with joy, and the regular customers congratulated the couple. "I don't have a ring yet," David said, still kneeling. "I don't need one," Emily replied, helping him up. "I just need you." They kissed right there in the place where it all began, as the cafe buzzed with happiness around them. In the days that followed, David and Emily began planning their wedding and life together. David got to know more of Emily's family. Cousins, uncles, friends who had become family. He was amazed by the network of love and support surrounding her and Mrs. Barbara. "This is all I've ever wanted," he confessed to Emily one evening as they dined at her place. "A real family that takes care of each other. And you'll have it," Emily promised. "Now you're part of the Parker family too." A week before the wedding, which would be a simple ceremony at the coffee shop itself, David received an unexpected visitor in his office. Jennifer showed up unannounced. "Jennifer, what are you doing here?" "I came to say goodbye properly," she said, "and to admit you were right." "How so?" "I spent this week watching you two. I saw how she looks at you, how you smile when you talk about her. It's a love I never knew how to give you." David was surprised by Jennifer's maturity. "Thank you for acknowledging that. I just want you to be happy, David. And she clearly makes you happy in a way I never could. Jennifer, you don't have to say anything, just be happy. You both deserve it." After she left, David felt as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Now he could focus entirely on the future. The wedding day dawned sunny. The coffee shop was decorated with simple yet beautiful flowers, and the ceremony would be officiated by the Justice of the Peace, a longtime friend of the Parker family. Emily wore a simple white dress that had belonged to her grandmother, altered to fit her perfectly. She looked radiant, with her hair down and a bouquet of daisies, her favorite flowers. David waited for her at the makeshift altar, wearing his best suit. When he saw her walking toward him, escorted by Mrs. Barbara, he felt his heart might burst with happiness. "Take good care of my girl," whispered Mrs. Barbara, placing Emily's hand in David's. "I'll cherish her like a treasure," he promised. The ceremony was heartfelt and intimate. Besides Emily's family, some of David's employees, Mrs. Betty and the coffee shop's regulars, who had become friends, were in attendance. When the Justice of the Peace asked if David took Emily as his wife, he answered firmly, "I do for the rest of my life." And when it was Emily's turn, she said, "I do, and I promise our love will be as strong as the coffee that brought us together." Everyone laughed and applauded. "You may kiss," declared the Justice. The kiss was long and emotional, sealing not just their union, but the beginning of a new life. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. The reception was simple, but full of joy. Mrs. Betty had prepared a special cake, and guests took turns sharing funny stories about the couple. "I knew from the first day he'd come back," Mrs. Betty said. "I saw the way he looked at our Emily. It was the look of a man in love. And I knew she was interested when she started coming in early to fix her hair before he arrived," teased Mrs. Barbara. Emily blushed, but laughed along with everyone. During the reception, David pulled Emily aside to a quieter corner. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For teaching me to love again, for showing me what a real family is, for being exactly who you are. Thank you for walking into that coffee shop that March morning. I just went in for a coffee and ended up hopelessly enchanted by the waitress," she finished, laughing. "Forever enchanted," he corrected, kissing her again. 6 months after the wedding, David and Emily received news that filled them with joy. Emily was pregnant. "Do you think they'll love coffee as much as their parents?" David joked, gently touching Emily's still small belly. "If they do, we'll have to teach them about quality coffee early," she replied. Mrs. Betty was overjoyed at the news of becoming a grandmother. Her health had improved significantly since David became part of the family, and she credited it to the happiness of seeing her daughter fulfilled. "Grandma Grace would be so happy," she said, stroking Emily's belly. "She always said our family would grow with lots of love." David had moved to a larger apartment near Mrs. Barbara's, so they could see each other daily. He had also expanded his business, hiring more employees and offering Emily the role of training coordinator, something she did with passion. One afternoon, as Emily taught a group of new employees, David watched her from the classroom door. She was patiently explaining how to use a spreadsheet, and her eyes sparkled when someone finally understood. "That's how she used to look at me when I couldn't figure out the espresso machine," he thought, smiling. That night at home, David told Emily about a decision he'd made. "I want to open a branch of the business here in the neighborhood," he said. "Here? Why?" "Because this is where it all started. Because I want our son to grow up in the same place where his parents fell in love. And because I want to keep having coffee at Mrs. Betty's for the rest of my life." Emily smiled, touched by his romanticism. "And there's more," David continued. "I want you to be my official partner, not just an employee, but co-owner of the business with me." "David, this is too serious." "Very serious. You have a talent for teaching, for caring for people. I want to build a business that helps people, just like you helped me." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." In her 9th month of pregnancy, Emily still insisted on working part-time at the coffee shop. David protested, saying she should rest, but she argued that the place was too special to leave. "Besides," she said, "our baby is already used to the smell of coffee." It'd be cruel to take that away now. One December morning, as Emily waited tables, she felt her first contractions. Mrs. Betty immediately called David, who rushed over. "Is it time?" he asked, breathless. "I think so," Emily replied, squeezing his hand. The baby arrived a few hours later, a beautiful girl with her father's dark eyes and her mother's sweet smile. "What should we name her?" David asked, holding his daughter carefully. "Grace," Emily said, "after Grandma." "Grace Thompson," David tested. "Perfect." When they brought little Grace home, Mrs. Barbara was waiting with tears in her eyes. "She looks just like you when you were born," she told Emily. "Grandma Grace would be so proud." In the months that followed, the family settled into a happy routine. David mostly worked from home to help with the baby, Emily gradually returned to work, and Mrs. Barbara became the world's most dedicated babysitter. Mrs. Betty's cafe became the family's meeting spot. Every morning, David took Grace for coffee while Emily worked. The little girl grew accustomed to the place, and the regulars treated her like the cafe's official mascot. "Look, our little princess is here," Mrs. Betty would say every time David walked in with Grace in his arms. One fall morning, as Grace turned 1, Jennifer showed up at the cafe. David spotted her through the window and felt his stomach tighten. He hadn't seen her since before the wedding. She entered hesitantly, glancing around until she found him. "Can I sit?" she asked. David nodded, though tense. "Is this your daughter?" Jennifer asked, looking at Grace, who played with small toys in her high chair. "Yes. She's beautiful, just like you." "Jennifer, what do you want?" "I came to say goodbye. For real this time. I'm moving abroad. I got a job in London." "Congratulations." "David, I want you to know that seeing you two together made me understand so much about myself, about what I threw away." "Jennifer, let me finish, please. You found something real, something I never knew how to value. Emily loves you in a way I never could. And you became a father. It was your dream, remember?" David looked at Grace, who was trying to reach a spoon on the table. "It really was my dream." "Then be happy, truly happy. You both deserve it." "Thank you, Jennifer. I wish happiness for you too." "I know I'll find it. I finally learned what love is by watching you two. One day, I'll find someone who loves me the way Emily loves you." After Jennifer left, David kept thinking about how life takes unexpected turns. If she hadn't walked away, he never would have met Emily. He never would have discovered what it means to truly love. Emily arrived for lunch shortly after. "Who was that woman I saw leaving?" she asked, without jealousy, just curiosity. "Jennifer. She came to say goodbye. She's moving to London." "How do you feel?" "Relieved and grateful." "Grateful? If she hadn't left me, I never would have found you." Emily smiled and kissed his forehead. "Fate has its strange ways, doesn't it?" "It really does." That afternoon, David decided to do something special. He took Emily and Grace for a walk through the neighborhood where it all began. "Want to know something?" he said, stopping in front of the cafe. "What?" "That first day, when I walked in here, I was ready to give up on so much. On love, on having a family, on dreaming. And what changed your mind? Your smile. You have no idea how powerful that smile of yours is." Emily was moved. "And you have no idea how much you changed my life. Before you, I thought my destiny was to take care of my mother and be alone forever. Now we have a beautiful family." "The most beautiful in the world," Emily agreed, looking at Grace, who watched everything with curiosity. 2 years later, David and Emily were expecting their second child. The business had grown considerably, and they'd opened a branch in the neighborhood just as David had promised. Emily had become a respected educator, giving talks on digital inclusion for seniors. Mrs. Barbara had fully recovered and helped take care of Grace, who at 3 years old already pretended to make coffee with her toy machine. "Daddy, do you want coffee?" Grace would ask every morning, offering her plastic cup filled with water. "Of course, Princess. The best coffee in the world." One morning, as David sipped his real coffee in the kitchen and watched Emily prepare breakfast with Grace helping, He reflected on how his life had completely transformed. 5 years ago, he was a lonely man, focused only on work, with no hope of finding true love. Now he had a wife who loved him unconditionally, an adorable daughter, another baby on the way, a mother-in-law who treated him like her own son, and an extended family that had welcomed him with open arms. "What are you thinking about?" Emily asked, walking up to him with her 7-month belly. "How you changed everything for the better." "We changed everything," she corrected. "Together." "Grace, come here," David called. The little girl ran to him. "Daddy wants to tell you a story." "What story, Daddy?" "The story of how Daddy went for coffee one day and found Mommy." "I already know that story," Grace said excitedly. "Daddy fell head over heels for the waitress." David and Emily laughed. "Exactly," David said. "And they lived happily ever after." "And I was born," Grace added. "And you were born," Emily confirmed. "And soon you'll have a little brother or sister." "And we'll keep being happy forever?" Grace asked. David looked at Emily, then at his daughter, and finally at the belly where their second child was growing. "Forever and ever," he promised. That afternoon, the family went to Mrs. Betty's cafe as they did every weekend. Grace ran to her favorite table, where Mrs. Betty always saved special cookies for her. "Our family is growing," Mrs. Betty remarked, looking at Emily's belly. "It sure is, and it all started here," said David. "Oh, but I always knew you two were soulmates," Mrs. Betty declared. "I saw it in his eyes on the very first day. A man in love has a special way of looking." "And how did you know I was interested?" Emily asked. "Oh, my dear, you started wearing lipstick to work after he showed up. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" Everyone laughed at Mrs. Betty's sharp observation. Later, as they walked home, David stopped once again in front of the cafe. "You know what amazes me most about this whole story?" he said. "What?" "That if I had arrived 5 minutes later or earlier, maybe you wouldn't have been working yet, or you'd already have left. Our entire lives changed because of 5 minutes. Or maybe," Emily said, intertwining her fingers with his, "fate had other plans to make us meet. One way or another, we were going to find each other." "You believe that?" "Completely. Some people are made to be together, like my parents, like my grandma and grandpa, like us." David kissed her hand. "Then I'll have to thank fate for the rest of my life." "And the coffee," Emily teased. "Don't forget the coffee." "Never," David promised. After all, it was the coffee that brought us together. Grace, who had run ahead, came back and took her father's free hand. "Daddy, when I grow up, can I work at Grandma Betty's cafe too?" "If that's what you want, princess." "And will I find a prince like Daddy?" Emily and David exchanged an amused glance. "Maybe," Emily said, "but that's still a long way off. And when it happens," David added, "he'll have to be very special to deserve our princess." They arrived home just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in golden hues. Mrs. Barbara was waiting for them on the porch, knitting a little blanket for the baby on the way. "How was your outing?" she asked. "Perfect," Emily replied, "like all our outings." "Grandma Barbara, Daddy told the coffee story again," Grace said, flopping onto her grandmother's lap. "Oh, did he? And you never get tired of hearing it?" "Never. It's my favorite story." "Mine too," Mrs. Barbara admitted, looking at David fondly. "It's the story of how our family became complete." That night, after putting Grace to bed, David and Emily sat on the balcony of their apartment, watching the city lights. "Sometimes it feels like a dream," Emily said, her head resting on David's shoulder. "If it's a dream, I never want to wake up. Do you regret anything?" "What?" "Walking into that cafe that day." David looked at her as if she'd asked the most absurd question in the world. "Emily, walking into that cafe was the best decision I've ever made in my life. Even without knowing, even thinking, I'd just have a coffee and go to work. And if you'd known you'd fall head over heels for the waitress." "I'd have run in," he replied, making her laugh. The baby kicked in Emily's belly, as if wanting to join the conversation. "I think someone agrees with Daddy," she said, rubbing her belly. "Of course they agree. This baby knows they have the best parents in the world, and the best story of how their parents met." "Definitely." 3 months later, Michael was born, a healthy and calm boy who from his first days showed his mother's gentle temperament and his father's determination. Grace was enchanted with her little brother and declared herself his official protector. "I'll teach him everything," she said, holding her brother carefully. "How to make coffee, how to be happy, and the story of how Mommy and Daddy met." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," said Emily. "That way, he'll grow up knowing he comes from a family full of love." In the years that followed, the Thompson-Parker family became a beloved presence in the neighborhood. David and Emily were successful in business, but never lost sight of what truly mattered: family and genuine relationships. Mrs. Betty's cafe remained the family's weekly gathering spot. Grace and Michael grew up running between the tables, treated like grandchildren by all the staff and regular customers. Mrs. Barbara became the most active grandma in the neighborhood, always involved in raising her grandchildren and supporting Emily in every project. When Grace turned 8, she made a special request. "Mommy, can I work at Grandma Betty's cafe during vacation?" "Work how?" "Helping to serve, cleaning tables, just like you did when you met Daddy." Emily and David exchanged a nostalgic glance. "Why do you want to do that, Princess?" asked David. "Because that's where our story began. And I want to be part of that story too." "But you already are," said Emily, touched. "I know, but I want to help other people fall in love too, just like you did." David laughed, impressed by his daughter's maturity. "All right, but only during vacation, and only helping with simple tasks." Grace celebrated as if she'd won the best gift in the world. On her first work day, she wore a tiny apron Mrs. Betty had specially made for her. Her hair was tied in 2 buns, and she took her job very seriously. "Good morning, sir," she said to a new customer. "Is this your first time here?" "Yes, it is," replied the man, smiling at the girl's politeness. "Then you have to try Grandma Betty's special coffee. It's the best in the world. It's the coffee my daddy drank when he fell in love with my mommy." The man laughed, charmed by the story. "Really? Then I'll have that special coffee." David and Emily watched from a distance, proud of their daughter. "She's going to be an excellent saleswoman," David teased. "Or an excellent Cupid," Emily replied. During that vacation, Grace actually helped at least 2 people get to know each other better: a widower who came to the cafe every morning and a retired teacher who always ordered the same cake. Grace thought they had a lot in common and always found an excuse to seat them at nearby tables. "Grace, you're doing this on purpose," said Mrs. Betty, noticing the girl's strategy. "No, Grandma Betty, it's just a coincidence," Grace replied, with a mischievous smile that looked just like her mother's. By the end of vacation, the man and the teacher were going out together every morning after coffee. "Grace, you have a talent for this," said David, "just like Mommy." "I learned from the best," she replied. When Grace turned 10 and Michael 5, David decided to tell them the full story of how he'd met Emily, including details he'd kept to himself. "Do you know why Daddy went for coffee that day?" he asked during a family dinner. "Because you liked coffee," Michael guessed. "Not just that. Daddy was very sad back then. He thought he'd be alone forever." "Why, Daddy?" asked Grace. "Because life can be hard sometimes, and Daddy had lost hope of finding a real family." "And then you saw Mommy," Michael said excitedly. "And then I saw Mommy," David confirmed, looking at Emily with the same tenderness as always. "And everything changed." "Did Mommy's smile change everything?" Grace asked. "It changed everything," Emily said. "But Daddy's kind heart did too. He helped me when I needed it most." "How?" "He gave me a hard time when Grandma Barbara was sick, treated me with kindness when I thought I didn't deserve it, and showed me I could trust love again." The children listened intently, as if hearing the story for the first time. "And then you got married at the coffee shop," said Michael. "And you 2 were born," added David. "And our family was complete." "Will it get even more complete?" asked Grace. "Are you going to have more babies?" David and Emily looked at each other and smiled. "Maybe," said Emily. "What do you think?" "I want a little sister," said Grace. "I want a little brother," said Michael. "Then let's see what the future holds," said David. That night, after putting the children to bed, David and Emily talked about the possibility of having another child. "Do you really want to?" asked Emily. "I do. Our home is full of love. We're in a good place and—" He smiled. "I like the idea of our family continuing to grow." "I want it too," Emily confessed. "But this time, I want the baby to be born at the coffee shop." David laughed. "At the coffee shop? Just kidding. But I want it to be another beautiful story to tell. With you, every story is beautiful." A year later, Lily was born, a little girl who truly completed the family. Grace and Michael were enchanted by their baby sister, competing over who could help more with her care. Mrs. Betty, now with 3 grandchildren, split her time between spoiling them all and teaching them the values of the Parker family. "Grandma Betty," Grace asked one day, "how did you know Daddy was the right person for Mommy?" "Oh, my little granddaughter, that was easy to see." "How?" "By the way he looked at her, but mostly by the way he looked at me." "At you?" "Yes. He treated me with the same kindness he treated your mother. A man who respects a woman's family is a good man." "And Mommy, how did she know he was special?" "Your mother told me it was the way he talked about his dreams. He didn't just want to be happy, he wanted to make others happy too." Grace absorbed these words as precious lessons for the future. When Lily turned 2, the family decided to throw a special party at Mrs. Betty's cafe. It had become a tradition. Every important occasion was celebrated where it all began. "This cafe has become our second home," Emily told Mrs. Betty. "And you've become my second family," replied the owner, now nearly 70. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "Mrs. Betty," David said, "I have a proposal for you." "What proposal?" "How about becoming our business partner? I want to expand, open more cafes around the city, and I can't imagine doing it without you." Mrs. Betty was moved. "Young man, I'm too old for new ventures." "You're not old, you're experienced. And that's exactly what we need." "What do you all think?" Mrs. Betty asked Emily and the children. "I think it's a perfect idea," said Emily. "You're part of our story." "I want Grandma Betty to be our partner," Grace declared. "Me too," Michael agreed. "Lily does too," Emily said, speaking for her youngest. Mrs. Betty accepted the offer, and in the following months they opened 3 new cafes in different neighborhoods of New York City. Each kept the warm, welcoming atmosphere of the original, quickly becoming gathering spots for their communities. Grace, now 12, had officially become the family cafe's ambassador, telling the story of how her parents met to anyone who would listen. "I think our daughter is going to be a writer," David remarked to Emily. "She tells our story better than we do." "Or a businesswoman," said Emily. "Did you see how she convinced that couple today to try the lemon pie? She's got both talents, just like her mother." On a spring morning, David was having coffee at the original location when a young man approached him. "Excuse me, are you Mr. David Thompson?" "Yes, I am. How can I help you?" "My name is John. I work for a magazine. We'd like to do a feature on your family's story, about how you built this coffee chain that's changing the way people connect in the city." David was surprised. "A feature about us?" "Yes. We researched and found out you have one of the most beautiful love stories in New York City, and the social impact of your coffee shops is impressive. How many couples have met in your establishments?" David had never stopped to count, but he knew there were many. Over 50 for sure, he estimated. "Exactly. You've created spaces where people can truly connect, at a time when everyone is glued to their phones." "Actually," David said, "we just wanted to recreate the atmosphere that made us fall in love." "And can I speak with your wife too?" "Of course. She'd love to talk to you." The article was published a month later, titled "The Love That Became an Empire: How a Simple Coffee Shop Transformed Lives in New York City." The story covered not only David and Emily's love story, but also other couples who met at their coffee shops. After the publication, business boomed. People came from other neighborhoods just to visit the coffee shop where it all began. "We've become a tourist attraction," Emily joked. "And isn't it wonderful?" David replied. "We're spreading love across the city." One afternoon, an elderly woman in her 80s walked into the original coffee shop with her grandson. "Young woman," she said to Emily, "I read about you in the magazine. I wanted to see the place where love still happens." "Do you believe in love?" Emily asked, smiling. "My dear, I've been married for 58 years. If I didn't believe in love, I wouldn't be here. And what's the secret to such a long marriage? Choosing every day to love the same person and never forgetting why you fell for them." Emily was moved by the woman's wisdom. "Would you like to share your story with others? We're thinking of starting a project where older couples share their experiences with younger people." "I'd love to, dear. Love stories need to be told." And so, the Coffee and Memories Project was born. Once a week, couples with over 20 years together shared their stories at the original coffee shop. The event became so popular, they had to create a waiting list. Grace, now 15, got actively involved, interviewing the couples and writing their stories for a blog she created. "Daddy," she said one day, "I want to write a book about all these love stories." "What a wonderful idea," David said. "And what would the title be?" "It all started with a coffee," she replied without hesitation. "Perfect." Michael, now 10, had developed a passion for making real coffee. He spent hours with Mrs. Betty learning the secrets of the perfect brew. "Grandma Betty," he said one day, "when I grow up, I want to be the best barista in the United States." "Then you've come to the right place to learn, my little grandson." Lily, 5, was the most artistic in the family. She spent hours drawing the family, the coffee shop, and stories she made up about people falling in love. "Mommy," she asked one day, "does everyone who comes into our coffee shop fall in love?" "No, sweetheart, but everyone who comes in with an open heart has the chance to find something special." "And will I fall in love at the coffee shop too when I grow up?" "Maybe," Emily said, "or maybe you'll find your love somewhere else. The important thing is to keep your heart open." One special evening, David surprised Emily with a romantic dinner at the coffee shop after everyone had left. He decorated the space with candles and flowers, recreating the atmosphere of the day they first met. "What is all this?" asked Emily, moved. "It's our anniversary," said David, "but our wedding anniversary was last month." "This is the anniversary of when we met. Today marks exactly 10 years. Emily was touched that he remembered the exact date. 10 years, and it feels like yesterday, and at the same time a whole lifetime. "A whole lifetime of happiness," David corrected. "Do you remember what you thought when you first saw me?" "I do. I thought you were the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. And when you smiled, I thought maybe there was still magic in the world." "And there was," said Emily. "There was the magic of true love waiting to happen." "And you? What did you think of me?" "I thought you seemed sad but had kind eyes. And when you introduced yourself so politely, I thought you were the kind of man every mother would want her daughter to meet." "And your mother really did like me?" "She adores you, says you're the son she never had." They dined by candlelight, reminiscing about every moment of those 10 years, the first encounters, the growth of their relationship, the wedding, the birth of their children, the building of their family business. "If you could go back in time," David asked, "would you change anything?" "Absolutely nothing," Emily replied without hesitation. "Every moment, every challenge, every joy brought us here, and here is perfect. Even the hard times, especially the hard times, they showed us our love is strong enough to overcome anything." As they were leaving, David stopped at the table where he had sat that first morning. "You know what amazes me the most?" "What?" "That if someone had told me that day that the waitress would become my wife, the mother of my children, my business partner, and the person who would completely change my life, I probably wouldn't have believed it. And if I'd known that polite customer would become my husband, the father of my children and my best friend, I wouldn't have believed it either. But it happened. It did. And it was more beautiful than either of us could have imagined." They walked out hand in hand, just as they had 10 years earlier, but now with the certainty that they had built something solid and lasting. 2 years later, when Grace turned 17, she finished writing her book. It all started with a coffee, told not just the story of her parents, but of all the couples who had met at the family's coffee shops over the years. At the book launch, held at the original cafe, Dozens of couples who were part of that collective love story were present. "This book," Grace said in her speech, "is dedicated to everyone who believes true love still exists, that the right people find each other at the right time, and that sometimes all it takes is a simple coffee to change an entire life." David and Emily sat in the front row, tears of pride in their eyes. "Our daughter is amazing," Emily whispered. "Just like her mother," David replied. Mrs. Betty, now 75 but still active, took the microphone after Grace. "I want to say something," she began. "In these 12 years working with the Thompson-Parker family, I've seen many beautiful things happen, but the most beautiful of all is watching how their love keeps growing every day." "It's true," agreed Mrs. Barbara. "They're proof that true love exists and that it's worth waiting for." At the end of the evening, after all the guests had left, the family was alone in the cafe. "Daddy," said Michael, now 12, "when I find my special person, I want it to be just like you two. And I want to write more books about love," said Grace. "And I want to design beautiful weddings," said Lily. David looked at his family and felt immense gratitude. "Do you know what I want?" he said. "What?" they all asked in unison. "I want our story to keep inspiring people to believe in love. I want our grandchildren to come here for coffee and hear the story of how it all began. It will continue," Emily promised, "because true love stories never end. They only multiply." The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this story. Do you believe true love can start in simple places like a coffee shop? Leave a comment sharing where you met or would like to meet your special person. Your heartfelt words mean so much to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories. Thank you so much for joining us.